Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Try to make 2 videos today. Hopefully it won't go as long as yesterday's video. First I wanted to do like a video I've meant to do for a while. I think I mentioned, and it's probably not an extensive story, but just talking about who was your favorite band, like in different periods of time. I've had lots of favorites, but who was the number one, centralized band that you chose? As if you had, some people don't have absolute favorites. They favorite songs or favorite albums, maybe. But for me, and I've told the story a little bit, but I would say when I was growing up, I bought the Rocky 3 soundtrack and Weird Al Yankovic's in 3D. I've never seen Weird Al live, sadly. And then I bought like my Thriller and Purple Rain, but Huey Lewis and the News. And so for about that was like 83, 84. From like 83, 84, when I was just like a sort of pop, top 40, Friday Night Video type of music fan and played in band and stuff like that. And I knew a little bit about the Beatles and stuff. Until 1990 when I discovered classic rock and Led Zeppelin. I didn't really have a favorite band, but I would say if I had to choose one, it was Huey Lewis, the News. Probably the sports album most people would think of, and that song, If This Is It, I think, is it? Or the one where their heads are in the stand, they're rotating, which my wife has pointed out kind of borrowed, or they almost ripped off the Monkees in some ways. But and the album that came after that with Hip to Be Square, I think it was Fore, F-O-R-E, like a golf term. That was the one that I sort of knew had Hip to Be Square, and also the big part of about that was the soundtrack to the Back to the Future, which I bought on cassette tape, which had Back in Time and Power of Love, of course. But I never was like fanatical. I mean, I think I did buy most of the Huey Lewis the News tapes because I had 4, and I think I did buy Sports, or my brother had Sports. And I had the first album, which I think was the first album that had Working for a Living, or Livin'. Anyway, but I never was fanatical about them, but I guess they were my first number one band, I guess you could say in a way. But then, I got into others, but it really was Led Zeppelin from 1990 when I was a freshman in high school. For, I don't know, at least a 2-year window maybe. I bought all the Led Zeppelin tapes. Rented Song Remains the Same from the video store, and obviously stuff with our classic rock station KQRS. They'd talk about Zeppelin, interviews with Zeppelin and the members of Zeppelin, learn about all the history, about the book Hammer of the Gods, and from at least 2 to 3 years they were my favorite band. And of course, I ended up buying all the CDs, and then in the last decade I got, or a little bit more, got all the records on vinyl from various pressings and stuff like that. But then it was probably around 93. Yeah, I mean, Rush was sort of coming into focus with my taste, and a lot of other classic rock, Pink Floyd, Boston, Journey. I always think of those bands, and there's others that I never. The Doors, Cream, Jimi Hendrix. There's Styx, and we're sort of in there to an extent as well. But Rush, it was eventually about 93, especially in 93, 94, maybe even 92, somewhere between 92. I was debating which band I liked more between Rush and Led Zeppelin. Rush were influenced by Led Zeppelin for sure, but. So from when I was a senior in high school, senior in high school, it was Rush until, that was a couple of years too, which seemed like longer, because Rush, of course, had a much larger catalog than even Zeppelin, and I bought the book, the guitar books, the tablature for some of the Rush stuff. I also bought Physical Graffiti's tablature. I have a guitar book for them too, but all the videos, and then eventually DVDs, but I will admit though, when in 95, that's May of 1995, when I was introduced to, thanks to the internet, Dream Theater officially, Marillion, those were the 2 that probably were the primary ones. And I think initially, while I liked Marillion, I kind of was drawn directly to Dream Theater's album, Images and Words especially, and then When Dream and Day Unite. And then Awake took me a while because of the vocal style was a little different, and I came to believe, I kind of feel almost that, well, love Rush, love all their albums and stuff. Their album Test for Echo came out a couple years later. But Dream Theater is kind of where it's at, and all the whole sort of, all the different inner outs and history and connections that Dream Theater and their music would bring. I admit they were my favorite band for a few years. I think they're my favorite fan base still to this day. But the band themselves and the music were my favorite band from about the mid-90s, from 94, 95. But I was still becoming a bigger Marillion fan too, and so I came to conclude, while I love Dream Theater, Marillion seemed to speak to me a little more. I don't know why. Maybe it was partly to do with the fact I felt like Marillion was my band, as opposed to there was a larger group of people that were interested in Dream Theater, in the metal community, the metal part of it maybe too. I don't know. But anyway, I kind of concluded that Dream Theater wasn't number one anymore. And Rush was still there, but it was Marillion. And Marillion that was about 95, probably when Brave hit me and became my favorite album, my most moving album, and then Misplaced Childhood before that to an extent. Some of their other records, and I eventually just felt, even before Marbles came out in 2004, they had those perfect records, and then they had so many of those moments in every album that I loved that I gave it up for them. It's like, this is it. It used to be Led Zeppelin, it used to be Rush, and then Dream Theater for a little while, but Marillion was had more depth in terms of their catalog. I don't know why. And then it was more of a just speaking personally to me. And I wasn't a metalhead. Even though I like Dream Theater, most metal I would not listen to, a little bit here and there, but for the most part. So that was part of why I kind of felt like Dream Theater, that Marillion was, because Marillion wasn't really metal, even though they had a connection with a lot of metal, especially Iron Maiden. And they've just been the number one band, been my favorite band since. Other bands that I've loved at times more than them, yeah, that's certainly true. The likes of, say, the Deer Hunter or Dredge, or there's some others, and I became a huge fanatic for King's X and Fate's Warning around that same time, but I never felt like Fate's Warning. It's pretty hard to feel like. I almost feel like Fate's Warning and Marillion have been neck and neck at points. But again, maybe the fact that they're metal is, I guess I don't consider myself purely a metalhead. That maybe is part of it. I don't know. Splitting hairs. And then, of course, I've talked about it almost ad nauseum the last couple months. Kevin Gilbert I discovered in 2004, more or less. A few years before that. Those archives of my radio shows I'll discover more specifically when I got into him. Probably like 2001, but I didn't really listen to him. I didn't know Toy Matinee until 2004, so he's become my favorite musician. And he's held that sort of position ever since. I don't know if Marillion or Kevin Gilbert will ever change. I think that might be. I'm almost to the point where while I love new music, I feel like I have way too much nostalgia and history with the two of them now. So that's it. I mean, as far as my favorite band of all time, favorite bands of all time, I have my favorite artists in specific genres and specific decades and periods, like the Deer Hunter. The last 10 years, I'm not sure if it'd be the Deer Hunter or... It's tough, because there's others that are sort of come into place. You look at my albums of the year, I don't know. Pepe Deluxe might be up there now, even though they have the one on More Apes and Androids, who I'm about to talk about, or Small Leaks Sink Ships, or it's tough, but Kevin and Marillion sort of, I've always, in the last, whatever it's been, 20, 25 years, has sort of held that place for me, that I just don't feel like there's a chance that anything's going to get better, but maybe it will. So I'd love in a lot of ways for that to happen, have like co-number ones. So, but thank you for watching. Give it a like and subscribe. What's the history, if you have 5 or 10 or even just one, who's been your favorite band for the most part for your entire life, and your favorite musician for that matter. So thanks for watching. See you next time.